Well, welcome everyone to Behind the Hype, Agentic RAG as a practical path to impact. I'm Alycia Eve, head of pricing and commercialization here at Progress. Today's fireside chat is all about getting past the buzzwords and talking honestly about Agentic RAG, what it actually is, why it matters, and how it's being used in the real world. I'm excited to be joined by Eudald Camprubí, co-founder and former CEO of Nuclia, the leading RAG as a service platform that's now a part of Progress. Udald's going to help us break down what agentic RAG really means, how it helps AI systems make smarter, more context-aware decisions, and why so many organizations are starting to move beyond traditional RAG to see real results. We'll be making time at the end for Q&A, so please put your questions into the chat throughout the conversation. Thank you so much, Udald, for being here.
It's a pleasure, as always, to have this conversation with you, Alycia. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So let's just really start with the basics. What is agentic RAG and how does it differ from traditional RAG approaches?
Maybe I would like to start by giving some very basic explanation on what is RAG itself, what are agents, and what is agentic RAG, so everyone can understand what agentic RAG really means. So if we take the definition of RAG and we try to make it very, very easy, RAG, it's nothing else that letting organizations, letting any company use the power of language models together with their internal data while they keep data privacy and data security. So it's nothing else than letting get outputs, get answers on top of the data that they have, which is not public, using the LLMs. Nothing else than that. If we jump to the agents, today everyone is talking about agents, and sometimes it seems that agents are some very special animals in the universe, and they are not animals, they are not special, they are a very simple thing. So an AI agent is nothing else than a piece of software, so a piece of code that to run and to achieve one very specific task is using LLMs. Nothing else than that. A very small piece of software, very focused on one very specific task that uses LLMs to achieve that task. The thing is that it starts becoming interesting when you take both concepts. RAG, so using LLMs to provide answers on top of your data, with agents, which is very focused softwares to do a very specific task. Because if you plug those concepts together, which is agentic RAG, what we are talking about today, this really opens a lot of different use cases and a lot of different possibilities. As an example, using agentic RAG, you can use agents that at the time they index your information, you can augment, you can enrich your data. You can automatically, as an example, label your information, or you can create your own knowledge graph, or you can detect, as an example, potential harmful information that you have in your company that you would not like to use in your RAG pipeline. And when you ask a question to the retrieval augmented generation platform that you are using, there are another agents that they are called retrieval agents that are they have other tasks as a mission, like, for example, being able to query information from different sources to make sure that they get the right context to provide the output. So nothing else than that. This RAG using LLMs for data, agents using software for very specific task using LLMs, and agentic RAG is the conjunction of those two concepts.
I really like how you broke that down because I feel like AI and agents, it all goes into this like amorphous description, and really thinking about it in terms of those specific use cases and connecting it and layering it on top of a traditional RAG, I think really starts to paint the picture of what's possible. And so really thinking about that even more, how does agentic RAG empower those dynamic context aware decision makings through AI agents that you were talking about? Like, how does that work?
Okay, sometimes, and I'm the first one on doing that, we are using some wording that sometimes it's hard to understand. So I will try also to explaining in a way that everyone understands. The first very important thing for every one of us to understand, especially the business owners, is to understand that the goals any company has, it's the knowledge. So the basic asset of any organization, it's the knowledge that they have. And this is very important to understand, because sometimes we are not that aware that we have some assets which is lying in our information systems. And if we are able to take that asset and we are able to use it, we are going to really expand the capabilities of the organization. The other thing we have to understand is that to be able to find that gold, it's not enough to go to the mine. So this is for the last century. The way we find gold today is by making sure that when we ask a question, we are able to find the right information, we are able to retrieve. That's why the retrieval, it's important. We are able to retrieve what matters, what's important from your data, to then generate the output, generate the goal that you have. So if we take this into consideration, reasoning agents, as an example, agents that the ones that I was referring before are, as an example, agents that understand what the user wants to achieve. They are able to break the user query into different subqueries, into different problems, and then they are able to go to very specific different places in the organization to find the information they need to generate the answer, to generate the goal. So this way of interacting with the information, transforming the information into something that it can be relevant for the organization, is where RAG and the context really matters, and how organizations today can really transform the way they have the relation with the data that they have, and they can even build other business lines or revenue streams from the data that they have.
It's so funny because this is such an age-old problem. Organizations know that they generate tons of information, tons of data, and have been trying to figure out a way to centralize it and make it actionable that can create all the buzzwords, right? The efficiency, the productivity. And I think what's really interesting is I've learned more about this space is that it's not and you just pointed out, it's not about just finding the information, right? Because even if you're highlighting it now, you're still expecting someone to know what to do with it, right? And operationalize it in the best way. And I think, what you're talking about is Agentic RAG gives you the ability to not just find that information, right? But to make it actionable inside an organization for really the first time, and that can manifest in lots of different use cases. And so, from that standpoint, what are some of the real world examples that you've seen and been a part of in terms of leveraging this technology to make measurable business impact in organizations?
So a lot, and again here something that I would like to be very clear, that is that retrieval is the king of RAG. So making sure you get the right information, the right context, is the key to get the right outputs. In that sense, for example, we have several legal departments or law firms that they are using Progress Agentic RAG as a way to, as an example, get answers out of get automatic answers of the hundreds of thousands of contracts that they have. A real example: we are working with a law firm dealing with a lot of thousands of contracts, and they need to extract out of those contracts. They need to answer from those contracts 5 different questions. Who was signing the contract? When the contract was signed? Is there any termination agreement in the contract? And 2 or 3 other questions more. So they are using the agentic RAG to be able to answer the queries automatically out of those 1,000 contracts that they have, so they don't have to go contract by contract, manually reading those contracts by a human, spending a lot of hours to get that same information. Another example, we have a customer selling very, very complex products. products that they require 100 to 100 pages of user manuals. So when this customer sells this product to the end customer, sometimes the end customer have questions, or they face a challenge because they don't know how to set up the product. So the way they are using Progress Agentic RAG is they are providing to the end customer with a way to ask the questions, so a way to find themselves how to fix the problem without having to go through the company and the technical profiles of the company. And this basically reduces the load work of the technical profiles. It solves way faster the issue of the customer, so customer is happy, the load of the employees it's less, so they can then focus in other important matters of the organization. So basically they are happy. I was having a meeting with them not long ago, and we really managed to transform the way they provide customer support. And then I could find other examples in the financial industry where they have a lot of financial reports with a lot of tables inside the report, and they need a way to be able to extract the tables and ask questions on top of tables, in that case in PDF and in videos. So they are also using the agents and Agentic RAG to be able to get the outputs that they want. So we have a lot of different use cases. We always ask customers to really identify the value that we provide, and we have KPIs, we have ways to track the impact that we generate, and so far it's very amazing to see the impact we are generating.
And I think that's such an important part. And I know you and I have talked, about that demonstrative ROI that's so important to couple with and really think through, what are those key use cases. And you mentioned something that I think from a KPI standpoint, I think can get lost. So you mentioned the customer support, which I feel like is a pretty common use case that you're hearing, right? Because we all interact with customer support. But yet, as you mentioned, it's offloading some of those easier questions and whatnot, so that the people can focus, the employees can focus on higher value work, right? So you almost have two elements there. You've got, how many customer inquiries were resolved, and then you also have, what are we able to accomplish with those employees that would be taking time, away from answering those basic inquiries? What are they able to do now? Right. And I think that second part gets lost, I think, a lot in this conversation, in terms of the benefit. It's a twofold benefit in an organization. And I know we could definitely have this conversation all day. And just as a reminder, we do have a Q&A here at the end. So for everyone listening, please make sure you're putting your questions in, because I know Eudald is going to be excited to answer those as well. But as we kind of shift focus a little bit, what are the biggest misconceptions around Agentic RAG that you're seeing and that you think are really important to clear up in the conversation today?
So, unfortunately, quite a lot, because probably as most of you, every day we open LinkedIn and we see posts in LinkedIn talking about new technology and something amazing that you can do. Most of them, they are fake or they are AI generated. So my advice, first of all, is to be really aware about what you read and what you believe and what you trust, because trust, such an old word but such an important word, it's very important in the AI industry. So AI, it's not magic. It's amazing. It give us capabilities as humans, as organizations, to do some things that 2 years ago it was not possible to do, or it was possible to do with a long time, so taking months of our life, but it's not magic. So in the RAG industry, one of the things that usually comes into conversation is that we have customers that they have tried to build their own their own RAG, and this is a huge misconception because there is no one size fits all RAG pipeline in the market. It's just not possible. It's not the same willing to provide a solution for a legal department and for the marketing department. The information The knowledge might be the same, but the way that you want the output to be, the information you need to retrieve to fulfill the use case, it's very different. The only way to be able to provide to different departments with different use cases a solution is by not getting monolithic solutions. You have to put in place a modular solution. Modular means that since there is no one size fits all pipeline, the only way is letting customers, letting users to fine tune the different steps in the RAG pipeline to make sure that they can get the output that they want. So first misunderstanding when we talk about RAG. The only RAG that will work for you as a customer or for us as organization, it's a pipeline in which you can define and fine tune the process to make sure the context is the right one for the use case. And the other one, and this is again is very thanks to LinkedIn, is that we keep seeing every time that a new language model is in the market, and this model it's way more powerful than the previous model. And now there is another model that it can sing, it can do math, and it can generate video. So usually customers come to us and say, hey, I want to use that specific model in Progress Agentic RAG. And it's very important to understand that not always the last language model that comes to the market is the best one, because at the end, the capability we use in a RAG pipeline when it comes to use language models is the generation part. It's how we are able to get the context and generate the answer. So there is no need for super expensive models able to dance and to create virtual humans. It makes no sense. You have to use the LLM that works for you for your specific use case. And most of the times the answer is not the latest model. It's some existing model that for your use case it's enough and it's way cheaper.
I think that's such an insightful way of thinking about it, because you're right. We're bombarded with all the latest LLMs and whatnot, and there's just this natural tendency to think that it's the best one and the other ones, aren't appropriate anymore. But that nuancing is really important to get the most out of the use cases that companies are deploying. And so, just as we wrap up, I would love to ask you, what are you looking for next in the agentic RAG space? What is getting you excited, and what are the things that you're going to be watching out for?
So I was before talking about LLMs, large language models. We believe that the future of RAG will be mainly small language models. There is no need all the time to use those big models that they waste a lot of electricity, a lot of water, and a lot of resources, because today the open source small language models, they are already good enough for most of the cases. So next step in the agentic RAG industry will be start adopting and even fine-tuning small language models based on the knowledge that the organization already have. Together with this, we will start listening a lot about MCPs. MCPs, again, if you check LinkedIn, you will see MCPs everywhere. At the end of the day, a very easy way to explain MCPs, it's a way existing softwares have today to, instead of using APIs, using language models to query the information you have in the software. So at the beginning, I was talking about one of the capabilities, agentic capabilities, that is important, which is called retrieval agents. So when we have those MCPs in place, when we are able to connect to a lot of different softwares out there using the MCPs, when a user in Progress Agentic RAG will ask a question, we will be able to understand the user intent, break the query into sub-queries. We are going to be able to go to the different sources of information according to what the user needs to solve. We are going to be able to those different sources and retrieve not only from your internal data, the one you have in the database, but also from everywhere, internet, MCPs, everywhere you can imagine. And we are going to put that data together to generate the output. And from that output, you will be able to connect to an AI workflow agent builder to then do some other task at later stage. And we are going to see also soon RAG platforms that will be able to run on your own device on the edge. So really spending way less resources and being able to really deliver ultra personalized outputs for the users. This is something that it's coming. The future is very exciting. But again, I'm here not to sell anything, but to give you an advice, which is trust the providers that you usually work with, because in the AI industry, trust is everything. And trust, it does not come from the latest LLM that you are using. It comes from the people, from the teams that they have already built in production those products that it could be interesting also for you.
Now, that's great advice, and I know it feels like every day there's something new, which makes it a really exciting space. But I think you've provided some really practical ways to evaluate, think about, and just overall look across your organization to identify where agentic RAG can really make an impact. But to your point, from a provider standpoint, there's opportunity for that consultative approach and collaboration, and helping you identify those, and ultimately delivering the best solution to deliver that ROI. So thank you so much for sharing that. Well, as always, Eudald, really insightful conversation. So thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and switch gears and move to the Q&A. But as we do that, just a reminder that we please go to progress.com/agentic RAG. Not only can you find more information, but we do have a 14-day free trial for you to try Progress Agentic RAG for yourself and see the opportunities that it can provide. Awesome. Well, thank you for everyone that's been submitting questions so far. And just a reminder, please continue to put those questions in the comment section. I am monitoring, and we'll loop those into this dynamic Q&A. But Eudald, just to get us started, and you started hitting on this towards the end, let's talk a little bit more about MCP. Can you first define MCP and then detail how Progress Agentic RAG uses MCP servers, in the product and in the overall use cases?
Okay. I will not spend a lot of time explaining what an MCP is, because it could take a long time. A very brief explanation would be MCPs are a way that you can use your CRM or the tools you are using in your organization. So it's a protocol that you can put on top of the software, and that software that you put on top is using LLMs to basically query the information you have in that specific tool, and you can get outputs and you can get answers. As I said, we will start listening a lot about MCPs, and MCPs are going to play a very crucial role in how we interact with information, which is basically in different silos. So when in Progress Agentic RAG we think about MCPs, we see MCPs in two different areas. The first one is using Progress Agentic RAG, the MCP from Progress Agentic RAG inside an AI workflow, agent workflow. So OpenAI just announced recently the Agent Kit or NI10 or Make. So we have different players in the market that they are very focused on building AI agents workflows. So enterprise agents will need retrieval capabilities. We'll need a way to query the information you have in the company to use it at some later stage in the workflow. So the first step on MCPs will be being able to deliver an MCP on top of Progress Agentic RAG for those willing to build workflows using agents. That's the first thing. The second area in which we integrate MCPs, it's in case you would like to use the information you have in Progress Agentic RAG together with the information, the knowledge you have in other sources, Salesforce or any software that you can imagine. So in that area, which is when you need to retrieve the data to provide an output in which you need to use your internal data together with external data, we are going to use also, or we are using, in fact, MCPs to connect to those external sources. So 2 different areas, using Progress Agentic RAG as an MCP for your agent workflow, first step. And the second area, it's using MCPs together with Nuclia, together with Progress Agentic RAG, when it comes to query the information that you have outside the knowledge box, outside of the information you have in the RAG pipeline, to be able to get better context, so provide a better output.
All right, thank you. As always, a wonderfully detailed answer. And there's another great follow-up to that. I know, again, towards the end of the conversation, we were talking about use cases and different customers that you've seen and how they're leveraging the benefit of Progress Agentic RAG in their space and this technology. What are, outside of what you've already kind of discussed, what are some additional use cases that can benefit from using Agentic RAG?
So, for example, something extremely recent that happened yesterday, which is OpenAI announced the Atlas browser, which is the browser from OpenAI, which is basically using LLMs to provide the full experience when navigating the website. So, if you have the opportunity to test it, you will see that the way AI browsers are approaching the user experience, is by providing conversational experiences. So humans, no longer we are going to sit in front of our computer and read a web page. What we want is to have conversations with the content that we are consuming, and we want to keep asking questions and keep asking until we find exactly what we are doing. So, an example of a potential application of Progress Agentic RAG is providing conversational experience on your website or in your intranet or in your portal. So, making sure that your product, your website, your application can follow the trend and offer a conversational experience with the users, because this is basically where the industry is going. And this is a very clear use case that you can build in that case in top of us. And probably you will start listening a lot about this new way of consuming information thanks to the AI browsers that we are going to start using very soon, all of us.
Awesome, thank you. And it's nice to loop in, just again, as we were talking about, this space is changing every single day, right? And there's something new and exciting to be thinking about and looking into. So thanks for looping that in. And just to wrap up the conversation today, I wanted to once again kind of dig into ROI, because I feel like this is a really hot topic. There's recent studies that have been put out about the fact that a lot of the AI pilots and AI deployments in organizations aren't reaching the desired ROI. And so around that, what are your recommendations for how organizations should invest in and deploy AI that has measurable impact, both short-term as well as long-term, on the organization?
Okay, here, of course, I don't have the truth, but I have some experience, and what I will explain is based on my experience. But maybe if someone has another experience, feel free to share it, and happy to discuss. So one of the first thing I would say is that depending on the project, depending on the company, it's very important not to have POCs, proof of concepts. You have to have proof of value. You don't want to prove a concept. You want to prove that the solution you are willing to implement is providing value. So that's the first recommendation. It's not only a word, it's a mindset when you're trying a solution and when you want to consider a solution to be deployed in production. The second thing is that it's very important when you are proving the value of a solution that the solution that you're using, it's production ready. It makes no sense at all. In fact, you spend a lot of time and quite a lot of resources as well when you test a solution that it's not production ready. And when I say production ready, is production ready in terms of not only working in production, but also being able to deliver the security that an enterprise requires, or delivery quality outputs or quality metrics, or even traceability on the output that the AI generates. So taking into consideration that, not doing POCs, but doing proof of value, and start with a solution that, even if you are trying and you are testing the value, you can then deploy in production. It's very important as well to start small. So my recommendation always to any customer, even if it's the biggest customer in the world, is start small, evaluate, test, understand, and grow. And this is the way basically to consider and to rethink or to think about return of investment. Start small, understand the value that you would like to take out of that proof of value, or a very small use case that you can start testing, and from that initial use case start deploying other use cases, or start building other use cases, and always evaluate the output. And evaluating that, it might be in terms of how much time do I save when I do a specific task, or how much faster I am in answering a customer, or how much extra time I provide to my team to do other value jobs that the RAG pipeline can do for me, like as an example, understand and query a table that you have a financial report. So there are a lot of little tricks that we've seen over the time that really works, and for any organization, especially when they are considering return of investment. But yeah, a highlight is start small, make sure that you have value from the solution that you have, and use the solution that you are using to test the value as a solution that you will then also use in production, so you don't have to repeat everything all the time.
No, great response, and definitely the beginnings of a roadmap that leads to success, right? And sees that value that you were mentioning. It looks like we have one last question. How is Progress going to help develop the SLM concept you represented versus LLM? So would love to hear more about this.
Okay, that's a huge question. It probably requires more time than the one that we have here. But one of the things it's important when you are using a RAG pipeline like Progress Agentic RAG is that you have something that is extremely important for the organization, which is the knowledge. And having the knowledge means that you understand the content, you understand how that content is structured, and you also understand over the time what kind of questions users are asking, and you also understand how you would like to generate the output, how you want to generate the answer. So in here, you have all the elements that you need to fine-tune a model, in that case, a small language model, that can basically be your own small language model based on your data and the way you would like to use that data to provide outputs to your customers. So right now we have all the end-to-end solution, and just basically fine-tuning the small language model on top of this. It's just a matter of, obviously, some developments. We are not still here. We are still a few months away from that, but the platform as it is today, it will let our customers to fine-tune the models and basically provide to the organization, to our customers, with a small language model that they will be able to use with the knowledge with the knowledge the organization have. Anyway, this is a pretty technical description that I would require to do. Happy to go deeper on an article or to have a conversation with the person asking this question. But it's a long conversation.
Oh, great. It sounds like we have some really awesome follow-ups after this conversation today, and that's always great. And so I do want to thank you, Eudald, as always, for your thoughtful discussions and answering the questions and working through that. I also want to thank everyone listening and watching us today. Thank you so much for your time. Please follow Progress on LinkedIn to see more details about some of the questions. It sounds like some follow-ups on that last one for sure. And to get the latest news and information about this ever-changing space. And please remember to go to progress.com to learn not only more about Agentic RAG, but also sign up for a free trial. So thank you once again, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day.